Welcome to Slayerfest 98. I'm Ian Carlos Crawford, and joining me today is a newly promoted co-host.
Alex Abad Santos.
Hi, Alex. I'm so happy
Hi.
to have you as an official co-host. I mean, you
Oh
basically.
wow. I've been hazed. I made it. We did it. I think it's a great time for everyone. And joining us today are two guests. One of them, he hosts Curious Jojo on YouTube.
Hey everybody, Jojo.
Hi.
Hi. Are you ready to
So
cry and talk to us about things?
I
Like,
am not crying, but
okay,
we will talk about it.
Ian will cry
I
for
will.
both of
Well,
us.
yeah.
And our other guest is Five Cats, enjoys physical media, and currently stars in Palm Royale.
Hi, I'm Dominic Burgess.
So, we are here to talk X-Men 97, episode 5. Remember it? Um, Alex, what did you think of the episode?
I mean, I think for okay, so if you're an X-Men fan and the word Genosha shows up, you're like, uh-oh.
Yes.
So it's just like you kind of like I kind of knew it was gonna happen, and it was interesting watching this play out. And I'm like, uh-oh, oh no, this is all gonna be terrible in about like 5 seconds. And I think that helped me brace myself for what was about to happen. But yeah, I mean, best episode of the season, one of the best things Marvel has done in the last, I guess, like one of the best things Marvel has done in the last like 5 years.
Yeah.
Like I
No.
don't like the amount of depth that we get into in like 28 minutes or 22 minutes. Crazy. Amazing.
Yeah.
Give it all the awards. Give it all the awards.
In that like short time span, they fit so much. And I've seen a few people be like, oh, but they rushed this. I don't feel like it felt rushed at all.
Yeah, wrapping up Genosha in like 20 minutes or so is crazy.
Yeah, but they did it. Jojo, what did you think of the episode?
Oh gosh, guys. I mean,
I made
uh,
Jojo text me after he watched it.
I just watched it last night. See, I had a feeling something was gonna happen. Immediately Twitter went into an uproar. What was happening? I was trying to swipe through everything, but I knew something tragic was happening in this episode, so I just braced myself. I did not know it was gonna be the bombing of Genosha. I didn't follow the comic books, so everything right now is like kind of fresh as to what's happening right now. But I mean, it just felt like cinematic, like soap opera, and I kind of felt like I was watching one of those like emotional, dramatic Sailor Moon episodes. It felt like Sailor Moon at
like
times.
like when they fight Queen Beryl and then with the English dub that amazing song
Yeah,
comes
I guess
on
just
and you're like,
the
oh my God.
animation too. The animation reminded me of like Sailor Moon, and then like the color aesthetics is very purple and pinkish and dreamy. It's like this feels like Sailor Moon, and then it quickly doesn't. So it was
And then
crazy.
there's like I feel like a touch of Akira too when he's on the bike, right?
Hmm.
Dominic, what did you think of the episode?
I've really been enjoying it. Like Jojo, I don't follow the X-Men comic books, so this is all new and surprising. And like Jojo, I had seen on Twitter people were like, "Oh man, X-Men is crazy." So then I stepped away, so I didn't know what to expect. I was like, "Oh, maybe we're gonna go back to Storm. Maybe we're gonna go here." Um, but it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice being completely blind to everything that's coming because then when shit, am I allowed to swear?
Yes, yes, you are.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, because when shit went down, I was like, oh, okay, okay. Um,
So wait,
I,
you're saying it felt nice to get blindsided by that mass genocide of Sentinels?
like in a
Completely.
way, because I feel like everything is so spoiled for us now online on Twitter. If there's or you know, it's nice that X-Men's being released on a weekly basis
Right.
because if it had been a binge model, there's so many big things happening that if you weren't able to binge, the things would have been so wrecked, and it feels like. I have my friend Daniel who will text, and I have my friend Gary who will text, and my fiance and I watch it together. Um, that now it feels like that old water cooler model of like, are you caught up? Where are you? Are you here? Can we talk about it? So I kind of like that buzzy feeling.
Yes, I there's been friends that like don't talk to that often, but like now we are talking every week to be like to text about X-Men and be like, oh my God, did you see this part? Oh my God, what did you think of this? And that's like fun, right?
Yeah.
I feel like the last time I felt this, I feel like White Lotus is the only maybe other show I can think of right now that like does usually do that with me, where I'm like, ooh, let me text the like 4 friends I know that aren't just online friends that like are watching, and it's weekly and it's like
Yeah.
exciting. And I loved this episode so much. I cried so fucking much. Like Alex, I read the, so like we were talking about this before recording. It's definitely like mushing a few stories, but I think in a good way. I knew the E for Extinction story, so I was immediately like when Magneto mentioned he sent the Morlocks to Genosha, I was like, oh no, we're not going to blow up Genosha this quickly, are we? And then we did.
Wait. You go back. You have to explain E for Extinction
Okay.
before.
So
I think you need, because we're with two people who have never, like, E for Extinction probably doesn't
Explain
ring a
it.
bell.
I made the like body of the like video I did for it. E for Ian crying, even though my name does not start with an E. But I was like, no one's gonna get that joke unless they actually know the name of the story. And I realized that was probably like a stretch of a joke that people don't get, but and like joke in quotes. But so E for Extinction was it the first arc in that run with Frank Quitely, Alex? I think it was.
With New X-Men,
Yeah.
Grant Morrison. Yep.
Yeah. So the first arc is like there's a new team of X-Men coming together. They have these like weird, I think I was a senior. I was a senior in high school because I was working at a comic book shop when they did the revamp of X-Men. Because I remember my boss at the comic book shop hating those costumes. I didn't love them at the time. Now I'm like, sure. Because they put them in basically like black leather with like jackets that maybe had a yellow X, but like Jean Grey's costume was black leather pants, a black rib top, and like a little gray X on her shirt.
So basically, like everything you see in like the Fox movies from 2000s
Yes.
is kind of like is where this comes from.
And I was gonna say, because I remember my boss at the comic shop saying they're just trying to conform to the movies and it sucks. But then the storyline was pretty fucking awesome. I mean, so you don't know who blew up Genosha, right, Alex? You don't reveal that till later.
Right. Like, so the X-Men are basically chilling and they're just like, oh, wait, something is happening to Genosha. And it's just like, oh, fucking shit. This is happening.
And the crazy thing is, right, Alex, they made it more brutal in this cartoon than like in the comic. There's just like the panel of the giant sentinel blowing it up. And like, then they go to Genosha, but like you don't see these people being blown up and murdered like close up the way you do in this.
Yeah, so basically I think Magneto is starting like the separatist type of thing, like a separatist nation, and they're trying to do it by the rules of like this is how it goes. Like Emma Frost is teaching there. There's kind of dissent that's happening, and then she like one of her students who's precog visions is like, oh, we're all gonna die, and she's just like, I don't know what you're talking about, and all of a sudden it happens, and the X-Men are basically there to pick up the pieces, and they're just like, oh my gosh, the whole reason by new X-Men is like, are they gonna have new political beliefs? Are they gonna have new, like, what is so new about these people that we've known for so many years? Because that team is basically a lot of the original team, and you're like, oh fuck, like there's just been a mass extinction of mutants on a grand scale. There's like a handful of them left. So what happens? How do you pick up the pieces? Who did this? And that's like where the new X-Men jump in.
And that's where Emma Frost gets her Diamond secondary mutation, where she can turn into Diamond. And there's like the panel that always stuck with me, Alex, from that is, so like they go to Genosha and it is like Emma Frost and Magneto's leading it, but it's right, Alex, it's a lot of like just nondescript mutants. We don't see a lot of like main characters that died on the island, but we do see that scene with Emma Frost and her students.
It's basically everyone who's on the island dies, and then they pick up Emma Frost, and she's just like, they find Emma Frost, and she's carrying Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
The like student that was a precog.
And she's just like, we need a hospital, and people are like, you're crazy. This person's been cold dead for a while, and it's like
really good,
and it's just like this shock that goes through.
Yeah,
like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what happened. I can't believe they attacked us. And they're basically like, well, they're always going to attack us.
Yeah. And like, it's like the image of them finding her and her holding this like dead teenager. And like Emma Frost is like, a tough lady who's not like one to be emotional. And for her to be like, no, we need to get her to a hospital. And like in denial, the fact that this like kid she's holding is dead is a really like, for me, that was always like, that was also one of the images that always stuck with me from that series. So I'm wondering if we'll get an image remotely like that with Emma from this.
Do you think now? I think, if I'm right, second season is written
Yeah.
and probably animated already. But now that it's been like a huge success, do you feel like season three is going to get the notes from on high? That's going to be like, you know what? You know who's really popular?
I have been worried about that, honestly. Like,
Well, what
I
I've loved about this show is that it feels like an ensemble again. That everyone is getting their little spotlight moments, everyone's getting their time, that it's not the Wolverine show
yes.
and it's not laser focused on one person every episode. So I've been really enjoying that. But if I'd be worried that if notes come down from on high, that it's like, Wolverine's really popular.
Hugh Jackman was in a Deadpool movie. Let's do more of him. Yeah, I have absolutely been worried about that, but I don't want to talk about rumors or anything, and I let everyone else talk about it if they want to, but I do not. But
Yes, then I
with
will not
with the showrunner and
put that
everything,
away.
right? Since we don't know exactly what happened, I am wondering if, unless it was something super heinous, they will do a James Gunn where they're like, "Oh wait, this was really successful. Yeah, we'll bring you back." Like,
Hmm.
I'm wondering, because like that did happen with him. He was fully fired, and then they brought him back to do the next movie. Again, unless something truly heinous is revealed, I almost hope that happens because this writing is so tight, and it's also done with love. And Jojo, I don't know if you are, but I know that Alex and Dominic I are gay men of a certain age, and I feel like it very much feels like
A certain
What are you trying to
age.
say? Hey
25.
now, hold
25.
on.
right. That's it.
20.
We're all 25, right?
Yeah.
Okay, same.
But it feels like this is someone who loved the show the way like we did as kids, right? Like that's what it feels like to me.
Mhm.
Um, but okay,
No, but
so
like I
oh,
mean
go
like
ahead.
the whole idea of like animation, what's so brilliant about it, and I think what Dominic said about it, it's because you don't have like an actor, right? Like you don't have an actor that's like, I
The
want
name,
like
yeah.
like you don't have like the big name guy, which I think happened in the X-Men movies, was just like Hugh Jackman became a giant star, and they're like, how do we make a movie around Hugh Jackman? And it's just like, okay, well, the protagonist is Wolverine. How do we bend this entire universe around this guy? With animation, you don't have that. You don't have like someone that's like, oh yeah, that's the next movie star. He's bankable.
Yeah.
It's just like there's a little bit more sharing of the spotlight. There's like characters, you fall in love with the characters a little bit more. And it's just like I don't care who the voice actor is. I want to see the character come back. And it's just like there's not a there's more of a chance for an ensemble here than there would be, I think, in a live action.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. And I
Unless
do
Dominic wants to be part of the live action, which I fully support, and
Oh my
like be
gosh.
like, you should
I
you...
Please, you put me in that prosthetic makeup. I will be beast in a heartbeat. But now I think, everything's digital and then they just bring back other people. Anyway,
and
all that to
and
say
you've already
is
been
my
in the
petition.
MCU.
Yeah, take that. I don't need it. I want to. But yes, I could be Blob. You can fill me out and I can be Blob or Beast or I'll find something to do.
Jubilee? You don't want to be Jubilee?
That's
Kitty
that's
Pryde?
appropriation. I'll let my fiance. He can do that.
I'm trying to think of like a really good villain you could do. But yeah,
Um,
Dominic, I was on an Agents of Shield podcast and I did not know you were in the episode that I was on, and I was like, oh, I know him. Like,
yeah, just pop in, just let my eye explode, just
no big
die.
deal. Yeah.
No big
Um,
deal.
Jojo, what do you think about like this versus the movies?
I really wish I'm watching this as if it is a movie, and I'm just imagining it being a live action. This is so much better than the movies, and like my boyfriend's watching with me. He just started watching this episode. He hasn't even watched the first four, and he was sitting there just in awe, like, "Whoa, this is like a little." This is a legit movie. It's a little violent. He's like, "Is this for adults?" Like, I think it was the scene where he was like, "Oh my gosh, this is on Disney." Is when Magneto and Rogue started dancing. Come on, for a little bit there, it was just like, oh my, okay, we're going there. It looks a little like it's very sensual, you know. So it's just those little touches of this, like it has like these little adult themes that I would love to see in a live action. But as of right now, this is so much better because if this is following the comics, that's what I want to learn because I'm so not good when it comes to X-Men history. If this is following more in line with what the real story goes by, I would prefer this over the 2000s X-Men. No offense, I love them, I do, but of course, this sounds much better.
No, yeah, I do have a soft spot for
More
those.
vast, more
Yeah.
vast world.
The world is like immediately bigger. And I think like Alex and Dominic were saying, the animation lends it just like we can have a scene where there are like 5 X-Men in the background of Genosha, you know what I mean? And be like, it doesn't matter if you know who they are, but it's nice if you do. But it like builds the world where it's like, oh, we know there are these other mutants that are like existing.
Do you have a question? And my fiance and I were watching it, and my fiance is much better with X-Men comics, and he follows along with the comics more than I do. Who was the chap with the see-through body but the skeleton? I
Glob
was like, who's
Herman?
this guy?
Glob.
Who is it?
Glob Herman.
Oh, I wanted to know more about him.
He's introduced in that Grant Morrison run, right, Alex? Isn't that when he like is introduced?
He's a part of like the new school of like the new recruits.
So
he is very loved. He is very loved
Yes.
among X-Men fans.
That's where my shirt is from.
Ah.
It says Magneto was right. Because it's introduced in that comic as well. The character Quick McGuire wears it.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, and there's like an offshoot of like different students that they introduced that have mostly all stuck around, right, Alex? I think like most of those characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like I remember at the time being like, oh, these are all one-off characters. They're gonna die and never come back. But they've all like become like regular X-Men characters.
So he's like fully made of wax, and then he can also like light himself on fire a little bit. And then he
I didn't know it
also
was wax.
he also
Wow.
he also
I thought he
has-
was like gelatin. He was like, oh, this is a jelly guy.
yeah. I mean, I think he could be like a little jelly. He's like I think he's like jelly, some kind of bio jelly, bio wax. He has a really good he has a really fun, I guess, arc in one of the recent New Mutant runs, and he's like basically he it's like there's like hate speech that's going around like online, and Glob Herman is at the center of it, and it's just like
So what you're saying is I should petition to play Glob Herman.
Glob Herman
This
though
is-
is like you might have to do some de-aging because Glob Herman's like like
Oh.
a perpetual like stoner teen, not a stoner
Okay.
teen, but like an awkward.
No, you can crush my dreams. That's all right. Don't worry about it.
I feel like the prosthetic. You just have to work with the prosthetics. Glob Herman,
Perfect.
you could be perfect.
Great.
So I want us to talk first about, we're going to separate the stories. We'll talk about the Xavier Mansion, the Trish Tilby documentary segment news thing. I thought that was a really good like format. I don't know. I thought that was like a fun format to play with, of her interviewing them. And seeing Beast and her kind of flirty because they date in the comics. And when Jubilee is like very excited to be interviewed, and I did like seeing Cyclops be kind of fucking grumpy about it, but understandably so, because you know, is like he's had a lot going on, and his like his wife and his clone, or there's like a lot, his wife's clone, there's like a lot going on there.
Well, he's like cheating on his wife with the clone.
But does that count as cheating? I don't know. Like
Dominic, does it count as cheating if you were
But they were
psychically
texting.
Like psychic cheating. And it was like, I don't know. It gets
texting.
it gets muddy because like he thought that she was Jean until what, like a month ago?
Yeah.
And that, well, wait, how long did Jean ask it was going on? It was like a couple of months. Was it a couple of months? What was the time jump
That's
between?
yeah. Between the episodes, I think they do say it was a month.
Yeah, he was like, just a couple of months. And she was like, months. And then she probably fainted.
Well, and like the thing I like,
I'm sorry, that counts as cheating.
the thing I like about it is that I feel like I understand where Cyclops is coming from, but I also understand where Jean is coming from, because I would also be pissed if my partner was in love with my clone, and I would probably not feel great about it. But also I understand where it's like, but Cyclops thought it was her, and they had a child together, so it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, if your boyfriend can't tell if it's the clone or you,
no one could tell though.
I mean,
How accurate
that's
was
not going to
it?
make Jean feel better.
Fair. Also, yeah, the messy drama, I like, as I was watching, I was like, wow, this is so messy. And then I was like, oh, the X-Men are messy. That like the JoJo, the thing I keep saying about this is like, when I was a kid, my grandma, my mom had their telenovelas, and I had X-Men. Like,
That's what it feels like.
right?
Feels like a telenovela. It's like soap opera and emotional and like it's like I don't know how to explain it. It really feels like a soap opera to me, and mixed with like Sailor Moon close up visuals, everybody kissing and in love and the colors. And yeah, I love it.
I feel like that's not just the allegory reasons, but I feel like that's another reason like queer folks are drawn to it, right? Because it's like fun superhero
Yeah,
shit, but also like high drama. Like
yeah,
every other
literally.
scene, there's like a new dramatic thing happening, whether it's like Gambit and Rogue, or Rogue and Magneto, or Jean and Wolverine, or Jean and Cyclops. Which, speaking of Jean and Wolverine,
That's
Wolverine goes
starting. Let me get starting.
Wolverine goes out to see her, and I was very surprised that she kissed him. I was like caught off guard. What did we all feel about that kiss? Alex, I'm curious. Alex, I need to hear your opinion on this kiss.
I mean,
Why?
I don't know. I feel like she wants to do bad things too. Like she wants to be a little like I don't know. She drags her husband, her maybe husband, depending on whether or
Yeah.
not she was a clone when she got married. I do not know the rules,
It's like
but I'm
payback,
sure.
maybe.
Yeah, she wants him. She wants a little bit of like, well, I can do this too, a little bit. And Jean is very much. I think the best depictions of Jean are that she's kind of a very she's a little bit of I make the rules, and that's like very good if you want like a superhero. It's like, oh, someone who's like very good and very upstanding, but like as a person, you don't really want to hang out with that type of like
Mm.
sanctimonious,
That's fair.
very saintly person. And you're just like being in a relationship with that kind of person, not easy. And maybe he's cheating on her with the clone for a reason. I mean,
Dominic, what did you think of that kiss scene?
Well, yes, it's messy, and she kissed Wolverine, and I was impressed that he was disappointed in it. But then also, it's the double standard of when Jean goes to Cyclops and is like, "You did this thing," but then like I could have gotten on board with her doing it if she knew that Scott was cheating before that kiss took place. Um, Not that I could have gotten on board with it, but I
I know
could
what you
have
mean,
like
yeah.
understand like, it's a revenge kiss. But well, I guess this makes it messy, and I like mess. So I'm on board, and they've always had that triangle, and so it's just a different way of playing out that dynamic. Because I guess again, not knowing the comic books and where everything is going to go, I guess my sort of default setting is probably a terrible idea, terrible trope. Is like, oh, so Scott will end up with Jean, and then there's one for Wolverine as well, which is terrible. Is that where it's going?
No.
Definitely dead, right?
Okay.
That's that right, Alex? That doesn't go there.
uh, Madeline Pryor really likes Scott's brother in the comic books and
Oh.
puts him in the little like he's into like he always finds himself in like little loincloths with her, and it's always like, oh my God, I don't know how this happened. He loves being like a little goblin, like a little goblin servant.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh,
Oh.
weird. That's weird how this turned up like this. And he just shows up in like a thong.
Yeah.
Madeline's dead.
Oh.
Yeah. It's Googleable. I'm not making this up.
He's not, yes.
Alex Summers loves a thong that he like accidentally finds himself in.
Yeah. It's like a ripped, sexy costume. I drew a lot of characters based on that when I was a kid. I was like, oh, my men will dress like this in my comics that I draw. I wonder what that means. Jojo, what were you gonna say?
Oh, that Madeline did die in this, right? Like she's dead.
We
To me,
saw some people survive.
to
So
me,
Hmm.
I was wondering that.
I
I'm
felt it.
wondering if like they will clarify who survived and who died, probably.
I hope so. Because right now I'm
It
thinking,
feels like an abrupt end to that story. I feel like she's got more story to tell than ending
right,
it there.
thought she was gonna be a little bit more involved.
Well, I do think I saw something um they were saying that like they're not reversing this. I do think they will eventually reverse it. So I feel like even if Madeline's dead, we will get her coming back because there is more story there. Alex, did you just share a picture of?
Yeah, I
Oh
feel like
yeah,
everyone needed
everyone
the
look at the
classic.
chat because
Oh,
What in the world?
that's
oh
that's
my.
Cyclops' brother with her.
Oh,
Okay.
fine.
I am going to put that in the video for
All right.
edit
Okay.
this.
Right. See,
Hot.
see, he just finds himself in these outfits, and it's just like, oh my god, I
She's
just
got to
don't know
come
how
back
this
now.
happened.
And it matches
Got to come back.
hers.
So I think, yeah, I think it's more you're. I don't think there's one for Scott, one for Wolverine. It's more for one for Scott, one for Scott's brother, which might be even
Oh,
cooler.
that's much worse.
So Cyclops and Jean Grey fight in front of the fucking cameras. And I was just like, oh man, guys, like maybe we table this or like go upstairs. Like maybe we don't do this when the cameras are right there. Um,
But I think like Cyclops makes a good point when he's just like, okay, well, I think like no matter what I say, right? Like
Yeah.
there's that is a man that has had like the roughest year. And
Yeah.
he's just like ready to quit the job. He is clocked out. Like the vacation days have all been like amassed and cashed in. And he's just like, last day of school, I've had the worst year. No matter what I say, you're still gonna fucking hate me. And then he's just like the first, like, and it's just like this is the leader, the Boy Scout of the X-Men saying this. He's like, no matter what I do, no matter what I say, doesn't matter if I am the nicest or the most like respectable mutant you've ever seen, you're still gonna hate me.
Yeah.
And it's just like dun 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 foreshadowing, of course, like Genosha, but like like it's just like that was kind of refreshing in that like I don't care. He's like I do not care because you guys will always hate us.
I did like it was like this feels uncyclops like, but I did think the same thing you did, Alex. It's like, but he's had a really fucking terrible time. So it like makes sense that he might snap.
Beast has a couple good lines. Beast is charming. Beast is not like the comics at all. And I think like yeah, it's pretty much like everyone and it's that is the subplot, that is the B plot, obviously, of whatever's happening in this
I
episode.
do need to tell Dominic and Jojo and anyone listening, in the comics, this is so insane that they ever did this with Beast. So in this storyline, in this run, Beast comes out as gay.
What? Really?
Wait, because it gets worse.
Okay.
And
Oh.
then a few issues later, when that reporter and him are talking and the mansion's being attacked, he says, oh, I only did that just for attention so people would humanize gay people. I'm not actually gay.
Oh. Oh no.
And I remember reading that and being like, what the fuck? Like, and he just like very casually is like, oh, no, I just did that for attention. Like, and they
Wow.
made a big deal about him coming out and then like, he just,
Oh. Oh, I don't like that.
yeah. So I'm like, oh, I really hope they don't do that in this cartoon. I don't think they will. Because
No.
even at the time, that was a pretty shitty story but I feel like that is.
And Beast is turned into like a full war criminal in the comic books right now. So I'm sorry.
So then the Xavier Mansion of it all does end on the way the whole episode ends, very fucking sad. And like, I thought it was really good cutting to them all watching the news together in the mansion. Because Bo DeMaio, who is the showrunner for these, was put out a statement today. Did we all see that? Like that he said that he like had in mind 9/11 and Pulse when he like did this, and he wanted it to feel like something like that. And I thought that cutting to them all watching it on the news really, once I read that, I was like, oh, that makes sense that that's what he was trying to do, because I did right, like you did feel terrible about this thing that happened, and I feel like cutting to other people that we know watching it happen almost made it feel more like quote unquote real for a superhero cartoon, but like that added more emotional, like seeing Cyclops be so upset, and like when Beast like puts his hands in his face and he's just like crying, like it really, I thought it did a really good job of like driving home those emotions, to just see it from a different, even though those are our main characters, but seeing it from different characters' perspectives. You know, they're not there, they're not seeing it blow up, but they're seeing the news about this terrible thing that happened. And I really thought that was like a really smart way to show people watching it, but it's still characters we know, but they're like, oh fuck.
I have a question. It's open up for debate. Hello. Just from like a producer hat, editor, writer hat point of view, I found with last week's episode, not that it was jarring, but it felt like 15 minutes of Jubilee and then 15 minutes of Storm, and then this week sort of felt like 15 minutes of Mansion, 15 minutes of Genosha, and I wonder if there is a reason why they've told the stories that way, as opposed to sort of, this is what's going on in the mansion and intercutting between what's going on in Genosha. Because I wonder if it would play very differently. There's stuff that's going on at the mansion by comparison to what's happening in Genosha then seems very trivial. That it's like emotions of like you're having an affair, you're having an emotional affair while people are being irradiated
Right.
around the other side of the world. So I just wonder if that would play differently in any way if they did that. Not that it's a negative. It's just sometimes my writer producer hat gets put on in the way that stories are told, I guess.
I don't know. I don't think that's a crazy question because, like I said, with I like forgot there was anything to talk about with the mansion until I did my rewatch, and I was like, oh right, there is stuff to talk about with that. Like there is drama happening,
Hmm.
but it does get a little undercut by the like genocide happening in Genosha. But I feel like that's almost on purpose. I feel like it's like, look how like trivial and stupid this drama feels next to this like
Hmm.
terrible like thing that's happening. And I think the reason I do think it plays out well is because I do think it's keeping with the ensemble.
I think what's arguments that I have heard or seen on Twitter or social media is like, well, you put all the gays on an island, like it's fine as long as they're over there on their island, and then you've
Yeah.
got Genosha, which is full of mutants, and then you spend time there and like it's peaceful and harmonious, and people are enjoying themselves, but it doesn't matter because someone will still, even if people are on their island and they're not bugging anyone, people will still want to come and fuck it up. Pardon my
Right.
French.
And it's wild to say this about like a giant robot murdering superheroes, but it's true, right? It's still, it
Hmm.
really is like, that's what it is. That's what they're showing us. And I
Well,
guess like,
that's Magneto's first line, right? Like
right.
it's just like, oh, like why would they elect a terrorist to be our leader? And he goes, well, why would you guys have countries where you allow your leaders to be terrorists?
Yeah. Which is like crazy poignant and like, that's just never not going to be relevant, but it is also relevant now.
It's also like, to Dominic's way, it's just like the island could also be like a gay bar or a
Right.
historical black college, or
Right.
it's like, or it's a college, or it's is it like, you know what I mean? Like it's, or it's a church, or it's a mosque, or it's like if you can't let like this world basically, and like what X-Men 97 saying, this world with like who you are, you will be attacked for who you are.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how much you do to appease the people, your attackers, they will always find a way.
We get Rogue, Magneto, and Gambit are the ones going to Genosha. I do like what a fucking bitch Magneto is to Gambit constant. It's like, not only is he clearly trying to have sex with his girlfriend, but he's like ragging on him and he's like, oh, if something happens to the jet, you're the only one that gravity will affect. We can fly. And it's like, Jesus Christ, Magneto.
I think Matt, my fiance, had mentioned it to me that there was history there because it wasn't really alluded to in the
Right.
original sort of 5 season run, right? And so I think it took a little bit of adjustment to be like, oh, this is the thing. This is the thing that was going on. Oh, okay. So it took a little bit of adjustment, but I do love this idea that she is able to touch him and that his like electromagnetism is sort of able to absorb or sort of deflect her powers. So it was like, oh, well, then I see the attraction of that for her. Um, that physical contact, and then that becomes, a crux of this story. Is what becomes more important? Is it that emotional connection or that physical connection? Um, and so I feel like that's always something that's very resonant. So yeah, I really empathize with her choice there, but I think because I hadn't personally seen that history myself in the last 5 seasons, or it hadn't been alluded to, then I think I was like, what's Gambit? It's Gambit. It's got to be Gambit. It's Gambit. It's going to be Gambit. So although when they started dancing together and they made that choice, and for a second I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, yeah, it's Gambit.
Jojo, what do you think of the love triangle?
I honestly, what Dominic said is exactly what I thought. I texted Ian when I saw that. I think Magneto and Rogue, it looks so cringy to me. It looks awkward. I also wasn't expecting that. I wasn't sure if that was like comic book related or what. It threw me off a little bit because I was like, wait, how old is she supposed to be too? Do you guys actually know that? 'Cause
Yep. So there has been annoying discourse about it. No one has a distinct age, which is a thing. That's why it's just like, okay,
okay, I was
like
thinking that she's like early 20s or something at this point. But when she gave the context and gave a little bit of the backstory, how it became about, I accepted it. I think still, I'm gonna get used to it. It's just threw me off. Like I said, I wasn't expecting that. I also wanted her to end with Gambit. So when I saw them dancing after she had the little fight with Gambit, and then she went to go dance with him, I really was like, oh wow, we're really doing this. Like this is it. She's looking at him like this is my love. But when she threw that little last little couple sentences, I was like, ah, yes. But it's just so sad, unfortunately. She didn't even get to go
right.
her real love, and the fact that he goes out feeling rejected
I know.
makes
I
it
mean
even harder.
that yeah, it like killed me that like
Yeah.
that's how he goes out. I mean, he's not like I'm sure he's probably not thinking of that in the moment because it's like there's so
Oh
much
no, he's
fucking
superhero mode. He's like, I'm
yeah,
gonna save. Oh man.
Well, they did such like it's so crazy to think about like the love story that you see is basically like of course like the seasons of that ran the 92 to 97. But like all that we really get of it in this season is them at the club when they have that little moment, right? And then just like I would touch like I wish I could touch you. And it's just basically it raises this question of like what good is saving the world if you can't enjoy it with like the person you love? Like why
yeah,
are they in it? And
right.
then it comes to this and it's just like, oh, oh no, they're never gonna touch each other at the club. And it's just like, but yes, very sad, very, very I mean, but I think again with the allegory, right? Like everyone knows someone or knows the story of someone who's basically like, okay, well, they didn't like life is too short. And the whole idea of like you didn't get to see a full life. And you're just like, I think that part hits at it too. It's just like, okay, well, how many gambits do we know? Right?
Right.
Like how many it's very like how many gambits have there been in our history? And when I say our history, like LGBTQ history, like how many like 28-year-olds like didn't have the love of their life
Right.
and we're like or we had to say goodbye early. So I
Right.
think that works on that level too, which I think is kind of beautiful.
Yeah, I like Gambit and Rogue are probably one of the few straight couples, especially in superhero media, that I actually care about because I'm always really into a like romance that's like not quite Romeo and Juliet, but something where it's like, oh, they can't, but they wish they could. Like that's like I'm very like whatever about regular straight up romance. But
Mhm.
when it's something, give me like this kind of twist, and I'm like, oh, I just want them to be able to like be in love and fuck and enjoy themselves. I got mad at Rogue. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, but Dominic, to your point, I did feel for her, right? Because it's like, is she supposed to never be touched? Like,
Hmm.
that's miserable, right? And that's like not a fun relationship if it's like, wow, we're in love. We can't even kiss. Like, are you fucking
Yeah,
kidding
and
me?
it's like, oh gosh, look, let's talk about X-Men Last Stand. Like I get that point of view of her wanting to be cured so that she could touch someone, and then I think it's interesting that it's Storm that's had her powers taken away because then in parallel, had it have been Rogue in this show, then she could have had what she wanted with Gambit. So
Right.
Sorry to bring up The Last Stand. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. We'll move on from it.
But yeah, I sympathize. I sympathize with her. And so I'm bored with her. Um, Something else I'll say. We touched on the age of Rogue and the age of Magneto. I don't know if this is because I watched it in the 90s and I was a teenager and I was younger. I always felt like the X-Men team, like Cyclops and Rogue and Gambit, when I was watching as a kid, I was like, yeah, they're all mid 30s. They're like mid 30s, 40s, they're grown up. And now I'm watching it as, a 41-year-old going, oh, yeah, they do feel young. Like they feel younger, whether that's the way that they're written. These characters sort of feel like they're skewing younger than the original run of the show. And that literally just might be because I watched it when I was 12, 13, first time around. And they're old. I don't know why I said that in an American accent. They're so old.
But no, I agree with you. When I was a kid, it was like, oh, they're like 30, 40. Like that's
yeah, they're adults.
Yeah, absolutely how I read them all. Because there's a comic where I mean, Alex, I feel like you can attest to this, right? Like those ages, they'll sometimes say an age, but like in 2 issues later, it could be 10 years different. Like they just there's no consistency.
Everyone is kind of like it's Magneto and Professor X are probably like 50s, 60s. Well, it's like weird because you're just like the further we got from the Holocaust,
it's like how old is this man?
The older Magneto gets, because you're just like, okay, well, how old is? And then it's supposed to be like a suspension of
right.
Like you're like, oh, like he's like 50s.
Right, because someone
he would be like 800 years old at this point, right? Like it's like if he survived the Holocaust as like a teen, he'd be like in his 90s, but he's obviously not in his 90s. So I always think that like the sliding scale is that Professor X and Magneto are like older. Like if they're like at least 15 to 20 years older than their students. And then Storm also is just like up there. Obviously Logan, because he's immortal or whatever,
right,
has been around a while. Mystique probably has been around a while. But like the students that came in who don't have any immortal powers are probably in their 20s and 30s. I would say Storm probably now is like in her 40s.
Yeah, Storm feels more adult than the rest of them, just like maturity wise and like everything else. But yeah, no, that's kind of how I look at it. I remember I was so happy they made Jubilee have her 18th birthday last episode. I was like, thank God she's not 13 forever, because I was so annoyed. In the comics, there was a very good Jubilee Wolverine like miniseries, and I loved it. But the thing that pissed me off the most was it was in like 2010, and Jubilee mentioned being 13, and I was like, I don't want to. She is not. This is not a 13-year-old child. Like,
well, it's also like artwork. I think it's like all of them are like basically the X-women are all supermodels,
right?
They're all like 5'10" and like 25.
Yeah, tiny waist, big boobs. Like it's like that. You can't draw that person and tell me that's 13-year-old. Like,
no, it's also like they're never going to be older. It's like, are we really supposed to believe that like Jean Grey is 65 years old at this point? Like, if she's like consistently being drawn as like a 25-year-old Barbie? No, like it's very. There's a lot of like it's very, very fluid. There's a lot of like they've had many 25th birthdays.
Yeah.
I do want to know what they're going to do in the opening credits next week with Magneto and Gambit and the introductions, because everything has been slightly changing week by week. But now it's getting thin on the ground.
It's going to be Storm. It's going to be like, all on Storm has some heavy shoulder.
They're not even going to get into the full titles. It's going to be dun, 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 and then into the episode because there's no one left.
I have loved that, like, granted, that theme song is so good, I'm going to watch the credits anyway, but I have loved that it, like, rewards you for watching them by having, like, a little different shit in it. So I remember in the second episode, I was like, wait, I don't remember that in the credits. And, like, I didn't realize it actually was different till, like, the third episode. And I was like, oh, no, it's different.
This is the first time that there has been sort of sad piano music in the credits as well, like a samba
version of it. Yes.
There used to be a soap, there's still a soap called Neighbours in Australia. And anytime a main character died, they would always have the sad piano, plinky plonky music at the end of that. So it really reminded me of the Australian soap neighbours who welcome Australia.
Yeah, the like even that music, I was like so emotional. I was like, oh, now it's a theme song, slowed down and sad. Fuck.
Like it was like the music, but also like the silence. Like when Gabby got stabbed and it was just a moment of silence, or when she said, I can't feel you,
Ugh.
moment of silence, and then that music comes, it was just timed perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
I
really,
mean,
it really tugged at your heartstrings the way they presented it.
like you said earlier, it just felt so cinematic. Like it really did.
Yes, cinematic. I felt like it was in. I could watch this in a movie theater.
Yeah.
I see this on the big screen. It was
Yeah. Like
so.
give me like surround sound of these explosions
Oh,
and everyone
oh
like
my gosh!
screaming
Can you
and yeah.
imagine the music, but also like the silence, like when when Gabby got stabbed and it was just a moment of silence, or when she said, "I can't feel you,"
Ugh.
moment of silence, and then that music comes. It was just timed perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
I
really,
mean,
it really tugged at your heartstrings the way they presented it.
like you said earlier, it just felt so cinematic. Like it really did.
Yes, cinematic. I felt like it was in. I could watch this in a movie theater.
Yeah.
I see this on the big screen. It was
Yeah. Like
so.
give me like surround sound of these explosions
Oh,
and everyone
oh
like
my gosh!
screaming
Can you
and yeah.
imagine?
Um,
Whew.
so in Genosha, we see that Madeline is thriving, which I did like that she at least got, even if this is like her end, she got like we got to see her like,
Get a life.
yeah, like she got to do something outside of just being Jean
Purpose.
Grey's clone. Um, and like I kind of I so the Madeline Pryor was fully expedited. That story is not she like more recently, right? Alex kind of is like okay with the X-Men, like a sometimes villain, sometimes okay, like ally. But that took a long time to get there. I kind of like that they expedited it to like she had this freak out in Spiral when she found out, and then was like, you know what? Maybe I
Mhm.
overreacted. All right, I'm gonna go on my own. And then she did make it. Like I was glad that this character got that at least. And I like that Rogue, like like you said, Dominic, it's like a month or whatever. And Rogue is like, oh, Maddie, hey, and gives her a hug. And I was like, oh, good. I'm
Mhm.
glad it's not like this motherfucker. Look, I'm not going to hug her. Like she attacked everybody. She's like, she understands. And they're like, cool, right? That's like water under the
Mhm.
bridge. And I like that about the X-Men, that is also very common with them, right? Like, I mean, how many times have they forgiven Mystique Alex and then she stabs one of them? Maybe they should stop forgiving her. But like, that's like very X-Men-y to be like, all right, this person, they did this, but now we're cool. And I actually prefer Magneto as like part of the team that like kind of can't stand them, but is still part of the team. I like prefer him that way. Um, which as a kid I hated those like issues where he was like that, but now as an adult I like really like that. Like I think that's like bringing more nuance to it. We get to see, I was so panicky when we started panning to see how happy and peaceful Genosha was and like all
Mm.
these mutants having fun. And we got to see like the kids, like,
Oh, it's like Fire Island.
yeah. And like, I mean, right, Alex, the whole time I was like, oh, they're all gonna get blown up. Fuck. Like,
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Didn't see that coming at all. I was like, oh, this is cute. This is sweet. They're having a great time. And then the leech character, I was like, oh, he's kind of sweet. Until towards the end, I was like, oh, this is so sad.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it drives the point of like if you leave mutants alone, like this is what they could create. It's just like look what they could do. It's just like you have, I mean, weird interpretive dancing happening all the time, and it's just like, but it's just like little kids playing tag. It's very much like Wakanda. I think it's like gay people's Wakanda is
Yeah.
like the mutant. I like whenever because I think like a little bit of background in the comic books right now. We're just getting over this arc called Krakoa, and something similar happens. Basically, Magneto, Professor X, all the leaders basically decide like, hey, we've been getting fucked up for the last X amount of years. Why don't we try living on an island together, protecting ourselves, making ourselves indispensable to the human race, and kind of just being like, we're gonna have our own sovereign country. We can protect it. We can sustain it. We can fund it, and then they still get attacked. But basically, this kind of idea is the mutant utopia is basically what's created. If you leave mutants alone and don't fuck with them, they can create beautiful things in a peaceful life and this island that they can just sustain on their own and not bother anyone. And I think that the whole idea of like, oh, like look, there's like monorails and there's like stuff that's happening. It's
The
like this
true
is
monorails.
yeah, it's like mass public transit, a walkable city. This is like, of course this is what they're capable of. And I think I like going back to what I said, it's like a little bit of like when you first see Wakanda in the Black Panther movies. It's just
Yeah.
like, look at what happens. Like this is a power fantasy of like, if you leave these people alone and if we didn't like you didn't colonize Africa, Wakanda would be this thing. And that's
Right.
the fantasy of like, if you didn't have this brutal history, you would have this fantasy. I think similarly, if the mutants weren't so brutalized in life, you could create this beautiful place, which is kind of sad.
And it was nice to see them. I mean, even though it's like what 10 minutes where we see them all happy and like whatever, but it was really nice to see. And like
well, they're hugging. All of them everyone's hugging and like
Mhm.
sparkling and making up a light show and just using their powers to be silly.
Nightcrawler teleports in, and like I like that he drags Gambit a little bit when he's like, what does he say, like make the bill your bride or something like that. And then there's that cute shot of like Gambit's. I saw on Twitter, I wish I could attribute to who it said this, but someone said Gambit is the representation we don't often get of monogamous slut. Like he is madly in love with Rogue. There is no one else on his radar but Rogue. And like there's like God, I could cry. There's like that very quiet, sweet scene where Nightcrawler's talking to him and she's watching the dancing and she turns to them and she just waves. And it's like so cute. And I was like, as someone who Dominic, I think you and I are the only ones watched a lot of Buffy, I knew that this meant I was like, well, they're all too happy. This means something terrible is going to happen. And like, I love that we got a quiet scene of that. And like, they're just walking around. We meet the council, which is Krakoa mushing. That's like the more recent era. I just wanted to read a list I made of the people on the council. They didn't use Quiet Council, right, Alex? They just called it the council here. Yeah, because in the comics, it's the Quiet Council. But so we had Madeline Pryor, Nightcrawler, Sebastian Shaw, and Emma Frost, who were a delight to see back. Magneto, who was brought on, Banshee and Moira McTaggart, Callisto, and then Rogue as well. Alex, can you speak to, I know, are any of them on the council in the comics in the Krakoa era?
Nightcrawler, Sebastian Shaw, Emma Frost.
Right. Okay.
Or basically, the whole idea of the council is like we were going to take these people from like the mutants can't govern themselves. Like they don't want one dictator or one benevolent like leader. They were like this council will kind of decide because they're mutants from all like runs of life and they represent all facets of it. So they're like, let's make a council.
And I gotta, of course, I mean, she gets like 5 lines, but they do a good job with Emma with those 5 lines. Like, I like that she's annoyed that Moira's there and then later fucking drags Val Cooper for her dress.
Well, the whole story about Val Cooper is, right, like, is she Mystique?
Right.
Like, do you guys,
I think so.
Did you guys pick up on that, or have you?
No. What gave that away? Was there context clues to that?
I think the whole idea of Val Cooper looking at Rogue and Magneto and being like so stunned by it, everyone's just like, wait, that's not how this woman would react. And so the idea is that like Mystique being Rogue's mom would be like, that would be more of an apt reaction of like, oh, is she like, obviously, I think the writers are probably doing a little bit of like ambiguous, like, we don't know, is she or isn't she? But like, I think the idea is like, she might be very well Mystique.
Okay.
And doing some kind of weird finagling and maneuvering at the UN.
I'd seen sort of Twitter feeds being like, oh, she's Mystique. In this world, in the comic world and whatnot, I'm just taking this from the films and what they had sort of done on that. Would Magneto not be able to recognize Mystique in that circumstance? Do they know each other well enough? Or are they in cahoots enough for him to be able to be like,
that's more of a movie thing.
Okay.
I mean, based on like based on the cartoon, I don't think he would know right off the bat. Like he would know.
Okay.
But it's also like the telepath would know.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like Emma and Madeline if it was her, should probably know. But also they could explain that away somehow.
Like Emma could know, and Madeline couldn't know because she could be like, "Oh, this is just Val
Right.
Cooper. I'm a clone. Why do I know?"
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like Emma should have some idea of what's happening because she's basically in the comics like the like a brilliant strategist, very good backstabber. She knows what's up. Like she knows what's up before people know what's up.
I could see them being like, Emma being like, yeah, I knew. I didn't care. I wanted to see what she was going to do. Like, that would be very much track with Emma. We get like these very emotional scenes between Rogue and Magneto and then Rogue and Gambit. And again, Dominic, to your point, it's like, I do get what she should be allowed to be touched, right? Like, that's miserable. But I still felt so bad for my man Gambit. He was like my first big crush as a kid. And like, I don't know. I love Gambit so much. And I even liked that they had him have a not. I like when we flip things where it's like, there was no villain in this. Like, there wasn't a like, this person's the asshole. It was like, you got why Rogue wanted to be able to like even just hold hands with her man, but you also get why Gambit would be really fucking hurt because he has been like in love with this woman forever and been very dedicated to her and has not complained about the fact that they can't, like, she is complaining more about it than he is. And it's like, he loves her so much that that's like, fine.
I love that he always comes from a place of kindness and understanding. That he doesn't lose his cool. He doesn't flip a table. He's just like, "Hey, Mon Cherie, this is what it is, and these are the cards we're dealt." And I like that it doesn't lean into any kind of uh,
Yes.
toxic territory because that
Because
makes me care about them more.
yeah, because it very easily could have gone into that, right? Like,
Hmm.
sure, they could have had him throw a fit and like still like, yeah, maybe I can get it. But like, this
Uh-huh.
made it so much better. And also, again, building to the emotion of, you're going to be really sad when this man dies at the end of this episode.
Honestly, you guys are making me fall in love with Gambit just by explaining his character. Because again, I didn't watch the comic books, don't know what his character is typically like, but knowing that he's cool, calm, and collected, and to get some news like that and still be cool, calm, and collected, and just letting it be, at the end of the day, letting it be what she chooses, her happiness. If that's what she wants, then that's what she wants. But obviously, you could see it tore him up. I
Yeah.
mean, that I mean, like you said, I'm trying to fall in love with him. He's pretty. That's it's honorable, you know. It's very mature. It's something you look for in a partner. So I mean, it just speaks volumes for him. It's sad, but I think that just speaks to who he is. You know, like
I think he understands her, right?
Yes.
Which I think everyone kind of wants. Like he's just like,
yeah,
"Oh, I get it." Like it's like he has something that I could never give you, and this is what you need versus like I mean, obviously like sleeping with a mutant terrorist who's been terrorizing your entire existence like is probably weird.
Yeah.
But like but
not a lot of people can accept that. Not a lot of people
yeah.
that kind of thing. You know, I mean, it really does take true maturity and understanding and knowing that person, your partner,
Yeah.
that knowing them inside and out, that this is what they want, and for you to be happy, you're gonna let them be happy and let them be on their way. I mean, it just speaks volumes. Like I said, it's a rarity, I think. So it's just refreshing to see in this.
I forgot what I wanted to say.
Oh,
We were watching it and I grabbed my fiance's arm and I was like, is this Ace of Base? And it was Ace of Base.
I
And
was like,
that
this sounds like Ace of Base, but I didn't think it was. And then a friend was like, no, Ian, it was.
is Ace of Base.
Ace of
Dance,
Base.
that
Matt,
dancing stuff when they were doing all the dancing, that song that was
Yeah.
playing. Okay, I
Happy
didn't know what that
Nation.
was, and I love that song. So I'm gonna save that once we get off this call. I'm saving that.
yeah.
Never
They
heard of
Ace of
that.
Ace of Base, maybe they were bigger in England, but
they
they
were
had
they were bigger.
I saw the sun.
We had the
Okay.
sign
Yeah.
and all
It's
that
a
she
beautiful
wants.
life. Oh, oh,
That's
it's a
still a good
beautiful
song.
life. Oh, oh. And so I was very ecstatic on the couch when that happened, and Matt was like, I don't, yeah, I don't know, I don't know.
I definitely had single tapes. The like, remember when they used to sell like the tapes of like a single. I definitely had
Like 2 songs.
ones,
That's
you
it.
know. But so then we get to the gala. Emma insults Val Cooper's dress, which is fantastic because also Val Cooper's dress is the same outfit she's worn every episode, but with puffy sleeves. We get Cable, the introduction of Cable, which I thought did such a good job of building dread because I didn't quite understand what was going on with Madeline when she gets like the nosebleed and she has to leave. Like I was like, I don't really know what's going on here. But then Cable runs in and I was like, fuck. Like, and the panic of him being like, I'm too late. I'm too late. Oh, no, 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 no. And then he like sees his mother. They connect for like 2 seconds and then he's like pulled back to his timeline. I was just like, fuck, fuck,
Yeah.
fuck, fuck.
Yeah.
And then everything blew up. Like it all happened so fast and it was so well done with the chaos. Like, right. There was sometimes when I wasn't keeping track and I was like, wait a minute, where is Rogue? Where is Gambit? But that was on purpose because it's like things are just blowing up all around them. So they don't know what's going on. Yeah. And I definitely like cried straight for these last like 10 minutes of this episode. And it was so well done. Like it was like a really good action movie, but like we set up all the emotional beats so they all landed, right? Like I definitely cried when Magneto's like, I have to keep a promise because Callisto, their Morlocks leader, is fucking dead on the ground next to him. And he's like, I have to go save them. And we get Leech, this like precious little green child who like we had already seen in the original cartoon. And I just was like, oh man, like I knew once Magneto said that, I was like, oh, they're going to kill Magneto. I didn't expect them to also kill the child he was going to save. Fuck. And like when Magneto is holding him and says, what it says it in German, I think,
Don't be afraid.
don't be afraid. I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. The
Well,
writing in this is so good.
It completely matters, like the editorial choice to make it the Morlocks that they needed to save.
Yeah.
Because the Morlocks are in the comic books, they're mostly like have mutant abilities, but it's kind of like they can just meld with a wall. And it's just like they can't really save themselves. And it's also like they're the most physically like while the X-Men, like we said this, like the X-Men are all very good looking supermodels. The Morlocks are all green and they have like weird scales, and some of them look like grandmas. And like and it's just like a very like you like they have the most like they have the worst part of the mutant powers that it's just like it doesn't really help you in life. You're shunned by society, you live in a sewer. And Magneto in the first episode, I think, or his first or second episode, is like, come live on Genosha.
Yeah.
It'll be safe for you here. I promise that. And then it's them that need to be saved is such like a good beat. And that you're just like, oh, like that's why.
Yeah. When he said that in that episode, I was like,
well, it's like the one place they're supposed to be safe, right? Like
right.
It's like these people, like this is the master of magnetism is making a promise to the weakest people of his population, saying, "I will protect you. Come to this island where you can live free," which they do, but like they're stuck. They're the ones who are stuck because in the bay, and it's just very all.
I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry again just talking about this because I thought it was such a good. The writing of that is so good, and it's such a good emotional beat that lands because he's just like holding this little green gremlin child who is just scared, and like they are vaporized like seconds later, and like we watch it happen, and Magneto knows, right? Like that's why he throws the like metal casing on Rogue and Gambit because he knows I'm not going to win this. Like we are going to die. I am going to die holding this child. I'm gonna fucking cry. Fuck. And like the fact that he's a Holocaust survivor, like it just, man, the way that landed for me is, I don't think I've ever felt that emotional over like X-Men. I don't know. Like Days of Future Past made me cry because it was like a really nice, happy ending, right? And this just felt like, I don't know. It really worked for me. I don't know.
Ian, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Now, because I guess I'm a fan of Star Trek and Buffy and X-Files and all these sort of genre shows where frequently death doesn't stick in some way or other. There's ways to write around it. There's going back and forward in time. There's changing timelines. There's alternate timelines where people can come back in. With these deaths now in this episode with Gambit and Magneto and Leech, do you hope that those deaths stick so this stays resonant for you, or will you feel cheated if in the next episode Magneto like comes out from a pile of rubble and is like, "Wow, this is how I got out of this one," and here's Leech. What does the future hold for you in terms of that storytelling?
I had a friend, my friend Brandon was DMing me and he was like, I hope they don't undo this. I was like, they're absolutely going to undo this. Like the X-Men, I feel like, Alex, I don't know if you co-sign this, but I feel like that is typical in superheroes, but especially in X-Men that they die and come back like very often. I think because I'm so used to that, I'm like, that's okay. I don't want Gambit and Magneto to be dead. So great, bring them all back. But I think because this is like, this stands alone, like this could be its own little movie, that like the emotional impact is still there for me. And because I am expecting like, well, maybe they'll do a time travel thing, maybe they'll do some kind of whatever where they come back, that's okay. I think as someone who's used to that, I don't mind it. Like you said, in Star Trek and Buffy and stuff, anytime I would like argue with someone where they'd be like, no, that person stays dead because of X, Y, and Z, I'm like, you can always write around it. Like these are genre shows. Like like there's no rules, right? Like unless the show has stated we can never bring someone back to life, and they never do.
Yeah.
Even fucking Tasha Yar in Star Trek, who dies very early on.
Or Ember in The Magicians.
These characters can still come back, whether it's like in a dream, in Margot's mind, or future Tasha Yar, or her daughter who's a Romulan. There are ways to bring these characters back. So I guess like for me, it's just like that's a symptom of the being a genre show. You can just do that. So I think of like this as its own thing of like, this is still brutal and sad. So I still like, I would be happy to see them again.
Okay.
I do think if it was like next episode, they're like, boop, we're all good, it would undercut it a little, like, wait, but I don't know. Because like, yeah, I think of like Buffy, right? Like Buffy died and came back twice, but Tara was not allowed to come back. You know what I mean? Like she was dead and dead. So I do feel like these things kind of pick and choose what they do. And I remember, Alex, is it Messiah Complex where Nightcrawler dies? Or is it the other one?
Second Coming.
So for me, I cried so hard. There's this like big arc where Nightcrawler dies saving Rogue's life. Like he teleports. There's like a Nimrod Sentinel that's like, I don't even remember, but like going to like kill her, and he teleports and the thing goes through him, and like he dies on Rogue, and it's like really sad. And I knew, even reading that in the comics, I was like, I know he's going to come back to life very soon. I am still very sad. And I feel like my brain has to learn to separate, like, this moment is sad, this character will be back, but this is still a sad moment. Does that make sense?
I hope they stay dead.
I do too, honestly. I do too. This has been so like heart-wrenching to watch, and I've never been so like into like a cartoon show, especially present day, as I am with this show. I really hope they keep them dead. Like, don't bend the rules. Like, show that the stakes have been risen. Like I'm liking what I'm seeing, and if they just turn around and bring people back, it's like, okay, like you said, it's X-Men. They do it all the time, but this time I just feel like since I don't know, it feels so much more serious and emotional. Let's keep it that way.
I also feel like you kind of want to, what's really fun about this is like you're kind of like game playing this out. Like, how is Cyclops going to take it? How is Jean going to take it?
Yes, that too.
How is Beast going to take this?
And they're all going to Storm going to take this. Like her and Gambit are close.
Storm is going to be fucking pissed.
Yeah.
Or like whoever has to tell Storm when she gets her powers back, which I think she probably is going to.
Yeah,
I think it's. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's setting up this like schism with Cyclops being like,
that's the name of a storyline.
I know. I was thinking of a good storyline, but like this kind of divide, right? Like, I kind of feel like Cyclops is already there, being like, you guys are fucking stupid. You guys are always going to kill us no matter what we do. This is going to just send him over the edge. Yeah. I think with Storm, she's more of the good soldier, right? Like she doesn't see the world the same way Cyclops does at this moment. And I think this part is going to be interesting to see her. And I think what's going to happen, I think what I mean, this is just speculation, but I think she comes back to the mansion and it's just like, guys, this is not what, like, this is, we're gonna, she's gonna want to fight for something else. And I think that this is gonna affect her in a different way.
Yeah, I do. I didn't even think of that storyline, but you're right, Alex. I feel like they could go the schism route of like they separate. Because also that is a plot line of the Storm losing her powers in the comics. Her and Cyclops fight for leadership over the X-Men. So I feel like we're gonna get some version of that. But like even in the original animated series, there's that clip. Yeah, I think you posted it today, Alex, right? Of like Storm saying, "No one knows Gambit better than me," and her and Rogue look at each other and then turn around. Because like in the comics, he originated, like their story was like where he originated with her. So I am looking forward to seeing like how this affects them all. Alex, do you think they'll bring Emma into the fold after this, or no? Do you think like we'll see her again, but not like as an X-Men?
I mean, I don't really know because the creator of the show has not kind things to say about Emma, who I think he and I differ when it comes to our appreciation of the character.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't like, this is canonically, this is when in the comic books Emma
Right.
Frost joins the X-Men. They find her in the rubble. She has developed a secondary mutation. She joins the X-Men and they have a whole new like way of going about their business.
She in the comics, Dominic, to give you a reference, in the comics
Please.
she becomes very Cordelia Chase Margot like type of
Okay.
character. Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's like after this that she becomes like that, where she gets very like she will tell you to fuck off, she will insult your outfit, but also she like wants to protect every mutant child because she doesn't want anything bad to ever happen again to them.
Hmm.
And
I
like
can on board with that.
and like that's always my favorite type of character, where it's like she will tell you about yourself, but also she's like a badass who like is in at the heart of it a good person, you know.
Hmm.
Well,
um
they all kind of figure out how to, they all have like this come to Jesus moment within themselves of like, how are we going to survive now?
yeah,
What does survival look like for mutants now? Now that you have eliminated like basically 90 something percent of the population of us,
yeah,
what does life look like beyond? And it's just like a lot of them, like Emma is very much like a capitalist. She's like, if I make enough money, I can protect myself because you can make yourself indispensable and rich enough. I think Storm probably has a different idea of what that looks like. Cyclops has a different idea.
yeah.
Cyclops is probably like, hey, let's like fuck it. Let's like go, let's like let's make Fire Island again. Or like let's go into hiding. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to be like I think you're gonna see a lot of people like challenge, like be like, okay, well, we all signed up for this school. We all signed up for assimilation. I don't think that's gonna work anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know we're running over on time. I'm sorry. We'll skip to Gambit's fucking I could not believe how brutal it was. Right? Like him getting fully stabbed and then us seeing him stabbed. I was like like I was
Silence.
I knew we were leading up to that, right? Because he's getting these big hero moments. He's getting like he had this like drama with Road with heartbreak, and it just storytelling wise, it's like, well, we're probably going there, but I did not expect it to be so rough with like he is stabbed through with like a sentinel arm wire thing. And like when they like cut to his mouth and he's bleeding and he just like smiles, I was like, my man. And he fucking blows it up. And Rogue crying over his body, saying, I can't feel you, hurt
Yeah.
my heart.
I didn't even catch it. I watched it a second time as well. I didn't even catch it that she had her hand on his face saying, I can't feel you. I would think I was just mind blown as to what was happening. I didn't even notice she was already touching him with her hands. So super sad.
Which is very Scarlet Witch and Vision in WandaVision when she's like, I can't feel you. Like we see
Yeah.
her like holding him and like, ugh. And I gotta say, Lenore Zann did some fucking great voice acting with like Rogue doing her like superpower annoyance, like still being sassy, but then also like fully heartbroken at the end. Like I
Mhm.
thought that was like really good.
Isn't this the whole like conclusion of a rogue story? Is like she's always afraid that she's gonna kill someone when she touches someone. And it's like she finally can touch Gambit, but it's like, like, oh no,
Oh, indeed.
shocked Pikachu.
Dominic, what do you think of that end?
I loved it. I love a good hero's ending, and I love because I wasn't expecting once he'd been stabbed for him to like then use his power then to eliminate the Sentinel. Um, so yeah, I was fine with it. Um I wish that. And this is not nothing to do with the storytelling. Actually, I think it was streaming, which is why I love physical media so much, is when we watched it, the episodes are 30 minutes long. It took us about 40 minutes to get through it because we were buffering so much
Oh,
on
I don't.
Disney. And so I feel like that undercut a lot of the emotion as we were watching it. So I said to Matt, like, I gotta watch this all over again when it's not gonna buffer and I get the circle of death spinning. And then half the time things were pixelated and
Mhm.
it put a dampener on things. So I want to go back and I want to sort of sit in it. Um, I can't think. I think last time I got emotional in a cartoon. I got emotional in Spider-Verse. I cry every time I watch How to Train Your Dragon. Um, my first experience of crying in a cartoon was when Optimus Prime died. That stuck around for about 20 episodes. Yeah, so I wish that I had, or like, I wish that once it started buffering and we weren't able to watch it, that we had the fortitude to be like, all right, let's stop, let's try and come back in an hour, or let's stop and let's come back in the morning. But I knew that my today's schedule was crazy. But I will go back and I'll go back as well once the series finishes, and I'll binge for like
Yeah.
5 hours and just sort of soak it all up.
To condense a story, I had moved in with my parents, and that's where this room is. I have a sublet in New York that I have been slowly moving into. And when I went up there 2 weekends ago, I literally just watched all 3 episodes that were available on loop. Like I just kept like in my apartment, I just was like, okay, play them again. Play like Saturday morning and Sunday morning. I ordered myself, a bagel sandwich because I was in New York. I'm like a fucking matcha. And I sat on the couch watching those episodes, and I was like, this is great. This is what I want. Like me watching an X-Men cartoon, new episodes, eating a fucking bagel, and like just sitting on a couch and
You want
maybe
to say
getting
hi?
stoned.
Yes.
What? You want to say hi? My fiance is going to say hi. He's an X-Men fan.
Hello, gang.
What did you think of the
Hi.
episode?
Half listening to the
What
conversation.
did you think of the episode?
I loved it.
You
I
know.
mean, I'm sad, obviously. I'm very sad. Gambit's my favorite.
Me too. Me too.
Okay, wait.
Jojo, what did you think of that end?
Oh, I mean, it was great. It's just emotional, heart-wrenching. I feel like the last time I felt like that, where I finished something and was like, yeah, that really happened. I think was like Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame. Like it was that kind of moment where
Yeah.
it's like this shit is for real.
Yeah.
It was great. It felt like a finale. It really felt like a season finale. So
Yes.
the fact that this was only episode 5, they've already said just wait. I
Yeah.
see some of them. I think one of the writers or creators said just wait. So I'm excited to see what happens next because
No, that's a really good point. This absolutely could have been a finale of like a
it
season
felt like
arc.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. At
Yeah.
least for season 1 or maybe season 1 part 1, and
Right.
then just leave us hanging for a little bit. I mean, I'm glad they're not doing that, but they could have. It was good.
One of my friends, I think my friend Rob said that he said that this felt like when shows like Buffy used to do like a mid-season finale and like take a break.
Mm-hmm.
Like this
Yeah.
felt like an episode for that.
Yes.
Alex, what do you think at the end?
I mean, I'm glad he got his pink explosion. Like, I feel like the whole, I don't know, for some reason, I feel like the Gambit power signature being pink to me is so cute, and it's just like, I don't know, it's so like I mean, obviously that's the way it was in the comic book or like in the original cartoon and stuff. But I think like the whole idea is just like it's kind of pretty in a way, pretty and soft, and it's
Yeah.
just so like the tension between that and what that actually all means is very kind of the visual storytelling. But no, like I feel like I love that our guy got an ending that
Yeah.
was very heroic and very much like the whole idea of like the Sentinels kind of brushing him off, right? Is very
Yes.
much this if Cyclops has been fed up and had like a rough week. Like Gambit's had like a rougher week, arguably. Granted, he wasn't cheating with a clone, but like he's basically been cucked in front of the entire mutant world.
Yeah.
And it's still like, I still love this woman. And kind of been humiliated the entire season. And it's just like he gets this moment or to, I guess,
Yeah. Yeah.
gets
I
this
mean,
moment to just blow, like to prove that he is actually not the Omega level threat. Like they were like, he's been underestimated. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's probably obvious, like a very obvious, like reading that he's been underestimated the entire season and like downplayed the entire season. He's the one who saves as many people as possible because
Yeah.
he is he sacrifices himself for the greater good.
Yeah.
Which I think is all you can ask for if you're Charles Xavier.
Yeah.
And wanting to teach, like, give your students the lessons.
Someone commented on Instagram, and I didn't remember this, that apparently in the original run, Professor Xavier does say to Gambit something like, how many times must like a scoundrel prove himself till he's considered a hero? And this was like kind of like leading to that. And I'm like,
well, it's also in Nightcrawler says like something like love is about forgiveness, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he's very much like, oh, like I forget what it is. It's something about something that's physical, but love is about forgiving someone. That's like how you can tell. And it's just like, okay, well, he obviously forgave Rogue. Did she forgive herself? Did she forgive him?
Yeah. Yeah. Real quick, I gotta say, like, this just came to me as we were talking about this. I almost think that they'll do the Emma moment that you and I have been talking about with Magneto, right? Because if he's holding Leech, that like, and he's the one that's like, bring this child to a hospital, and they're like, the child's dead. I feel like that would make sense that Magneto could survive. He's an Omega level mutant. And then like we have the like kid that someone can be holding that's really fucking sad. So I feel like I could see them finding Magneto under the rubble and him, because like he like was vaporized, but like, you know, it's kind of like a generic explosion, so we don't see it. But I'm wondering if they'll do that with him. But now I want to bring in a special guest. I got to sit down with Lenore Zann and talk about this episode with her. So I'm here with the voice of Rogue herself, Lenore Zann. Thank you, Lenore, for doing this so last minute. We just recorded the episode on Remember It yesterday, and I was like, we might be a little delayed because I might have a special guest.
Cool.
Tell me real quick, in general, the experience of all this coming back. Tell everyone about how that's been.
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, I gotta say, here we are in New York.
Yes.
And thank you for having me on your show. I flew in last night. I flew all night. I took the red eye from Los Angeles. Here for a couple of days to do some signings for people here in New York and online through Unknown Comics, whatnot. And it's been an amazing experience. I sometimes think about the new folks that are on the show and how they are coming into this show and they're in a hit show. They're in this big hit show that everybody's talking about. Like, what an amazing experience.
Yeah.
But for those of us who did the original show, it's kind of like, wow, we are finally being able to reap the benefits of what we've sown 30 years later.
I remember when I had you in the Leewolds on a few years ago, I remember all of you saying you didn't really interact with fans because like you didn't even know like how big it was or whatever.
No. And there was no social media back then. There was no internet or social media, so we had no idea how popular it was, and we couldn't interact that way. But now it's like we are interacting, or I am anyway, and I'm really loving talking to the fans.
You know, I feel like there's you feel that like you and like Allison and the folks that have come back clearly like love the like material, and you all are so sweet with the fans, which is so nice to see because it doesn't happen all the time. We cover lots of fandoms on this podcast, and sometimes it can be hard to get folks to want to talk about their thing, which is understandable. Sometimes they're like, I'm doing something else now.
Right.
But all of y'all seem to have a lot of love for the X-Men in general.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, we loved it when we did it 30 years ago. We all bonded. And And we loved our characters. We loved the stories. I mean, we felt that it was amazing then. But as I said, it took another 25 years for us to actually start to feel the love from the fans, because we went to a Comic-Con in Texas. We did like this reunion. And that was the first time that we felt some of the love from the fans. And then we were invited to go to the Los Angeles Comic-Con that same year. And I think it was 2019. And there were like 100,000 people there, and they were screaming when we went on stage. And it was the first time. It was like,
That's so fucking nice.
I know, right? And we were, and a lot of us are theater performers to begin with. And so it was like having this theatrical audience actually give us the energy that you crave as an actor.
that you deserve.
Oh, thank you. But it's been amazing. And we're also grateful to be given this opportunity, and that finally all the work that we've done is paying off.
I gotta ask, I read, I forget if it was Entertainment Weekly or somewhere, that you said you did also have to audition again.
Yeah.
But were you asked, like you were asked, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so there was like, we want you to audition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they reached out. They found us all wherever we were. I was in Truro, Nova Scotia, which is where I had grown up, and they found me and they were like, "Yeah, we got this audition. Would you like to try it?" I'm like, "Sure." And then I got it. It was like, "Oh, this is Rogue."
Oh, you didn't know?
No,
Oh,
they wouldn't tell us.
That's
They were
funny.
being very secretive.
I've had a few friends that have said they've auditioned for things for Disney and they still don't know what it was. Because
Right.
if they didn't get it, they didn't know, and
Right.
they have no idea what they auditioned for.
Yeah.
This is common with them.
Okay.
But I gotta talk about Remember It. So
Yeah.
you killed me. You broke my heart.
Sorry.
When you first got that script, what did you feel when you saw what was gonna happen?
Well, it broke my heart too, because I do love Gambit.
Yeah.
I as a woman, as a character, every part of my body, I love Gambit. I think he's an amazing character. And I was devastated, as was AJ, who plays
Yeah.
Gambit. But it's so brilliantly written by Beau DeMayo. He really deserves the kudos. It has all the beats, and for someone with a theatrical background, playing theater in a lot of theater, it's so easily playable, and like a Greek tragedy.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
a Shakespearean or Greek tragedy. And the two star-crossed lovers, and that's partly what I think people also, it reverberates with people, and they get that. And that tension with Rogue and Gambit, if they could just get together and love each other just like anybody else, it wouldn't have that tension there.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have
Yeah.
that incredible dramatic tension. And this just ratchets it.
I feel very validated that you brought up Romeo and Juliet, because in our recording I brought that up and I
Did
was like,
you?
it's not quite Romeo and Juliet, but it kind of
Oh,
is.
there you
And
go.
like, I do feel like, I keep saying this, Gambit and Rogue are like one of the few straight couples I'm always caring about.
Thank you.
But I also think queer folks can relate to what you just said, where it's like, if they
Uh-huh.
could just get together.
Yeah.
And I feel like that maybe is why it resonates with a lot of us.
Probably. And plus
Uh-huh.
the thing that she can't touch him. And so she feels that she sees all these other people touching and loving and being fond with each other in public, and she can't do that. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who can relate to that as well.
Yes. And I thought the thing that Beau's writing and y'all conveyed really well in this episode was that no one was really like super at fault.
Right.
Like, you understood why Rogue wanted to, like, she deserves to be touched, right?
Right.
And she just can't with Gambit. It's not like she's like, oh, I hate you now or anything.
No.
And you understand why Gambit still feels upset because he loves her so much.
Yeah.
But you also understand why she wants to be touched, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so I always appreciate a nuance there when it's not like clear cut, like this person's in the wrong, and this
Right.
person's in the right.
Exactly.
Um,
And then what do you think of the moment when she has that incredible dance?
I was a
with
little mad at
Magneto,
Rogue.
right? But then they kiss, Right, but I love the dancing in the air. I mean, her
animation was
her
beautiful.
entrance.
Yeah.
Right, I want an entrance like that. I want to come down from the sky and just land in my beautiful gown.
I'll have to send that to you. A friend of mine edited that so like Beyonce starts playing as
Oh,
Rogue enters.
So she comes in and they do the dance and everything, palm to palm, as holy palm was cut. I mean, it's very Romeo and Juliet there. And then when she says, and this is interesting, you're gonna find this interesting. I made up a line and I asked Bo if I could say it. He had something else written after they kiss. And I said, my instinct is to repeat what Remy said earlier. He said, some things be deeper than skin. When she said, she once been wanting to touch someone's skin to skin for her entire life. And he goes, yeah, but some things be deeper than skin. And then when she kisses Magneto, and then she pulls away, she goes, thanks for the dance, sugar. Remy was right. Some things are deeper than skin.
You make me cry.
Right?
Yeah, no, I thought that was like really beautiful. And I was like, Rogue, you're doing this in front of Gambit. And then I was like, oh, good, she's picking Gambit. And then I kind of was nervous that something bad was going to happen, but
Really?
I didn't know how bad.
Yeah, it's bad.
And I gotta say, I've been like really impressed with the stuff that y'all have been able to do. I remember when you and Lillywald said that like Fox kind of didn't pay attention to what you did in the cartoon. They kind of didn't
Right.
care.
Right.
But I know Disney is not like that, and they are,
Yeah.
they keep track of things.
Mhm.
But I've been like really impressed with stuff like you can have Rogue and Magneto kiss, and then she's like, no, I love Gambit, and then Gambit can, get impaled, and like it's sad and tragic, and I love seeing that it's like still the same cartoon, but for the people that watched it when they were kids.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like a graphic novel.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Mhm.
Even like the illustration, the artwork to me reminds me of a graphic novel.
Yes.
And I mean, the kids from the 90s who are now adults, they are very they've lived a lot. They've seen a lot, they've experienced a lot, and they love the X-Men and what we stand for. So this is really ratcheting it up for this particular modern day audience. The interesting thing is a lot of the people who are now adults, the fans, have been introducing their kids to the show. And the kids have been watching it too. And I was like, I hope this isn't gonna be traumatic for them. But I've been hearing from people who told me that their children loved it. And they said they're really sad for Rogue. One little girl, actually, one of our producers, Sean Ganka, told me that his little girl had met me at a Comic-Con recently, and I signed a thing specially for her and everything. And she said, I'm really sad because I'm sad for Rogue because Rogue lost the two boys that she loved.
That's so cute.
I know. So I wrote to him back and said to tell her, I said, you tell her that sometimes we have to, grieve for sad things that happen, and sometimes we lose people that we love, but then we get back up and we find a strength within to carry on. And I said, and keep the faith.
You're not to be too corny, but I lost my mom last year, and that's very nice to hear. I gotta say,
sorry.
You're gonna make me cry because it's like you like.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I just lost my dad too. I lost my dad in
It's hard, right?
October.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Even when you're like an adult and older,
Yes, absolutely. But there's so much we as a species right now are experiencing and witnessing so much death and destruction.
Yeah.
On the news, all around the world, these terrible wars, the terrible shootings, the mass shootings that are happening, the pandemic. The pandemic, everybody's lost somebody. And I think that we're all collectively grieving.
Yeah.
And deep inside we're grieving, and that makes people do crazy things too. And so I think that this episode has been able to tap into that for people.
Yes.
And people are saying that they are crying when they haven't cried in years.
Yeah.
You know?
I do like, I'm 41, what is my life? But I do like reaction videos on YouTube for the X-Men episodes where I just like do my first watch.
Right.
So good. And I just like cried for the last like 10 minutes.
Oh, really?
It's just like me crying. But you do such a good job. And I mean, I know you are like this anyway, but like as Rogue exuding such warmth. And you bring that, I feel like, as you, Lenore, but also you bring it as Rogue.
Thank you.
What do you think is like, is there a difference there, or is it kind of just
No.
like
It's just me. What can I say?
you know, it's funny
Yeah.
because I know a lot of actors are like, you know, no, that's not, you know, I'm not like my character, but a lot of, I feel like y'all from X-Men and, you know, I cover Buffy the Vampire Slayer, a lot of actors from that era are like, no, I'm kind of like my character.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, with Rogue, I put myself into it, and I use a lot of my own experiences and memories and emotions because they relate to what she's going through and what she's doing. So it's very easy for me to tap into my emotions. And I think part of the beauty of being an actor and art is being able to help make other people feel their feelings. Because sometimes, you know, people aren't used to doing that. They're used to, you know, either numbing themselves with either alcohol or drugs or other behaviors, shopping, or, you know, whatever. And they're also, a lot of men are used to thinking, oh, well, I have to be strong and stalwart and I can't let my emotions. And I'm here to go, no, we're human beings. Let it flow. Let the tears come.
that,
You
it's
know?
funny. My dad would be like that after he'd be like, oh, this is stupid. I'm crying. I'd be like, this isn't stupid.
No.
Like, it makes sense that you're crying. That's perfectly normal. And like, okay,
Exactly.
you're right. A lot of like, and I guess like seeing Rogue, who is this like tough badass who can like, you know, punch through a sentinel and lift up a car, but she's also vulnerable.
Yes.
Right.
I think that's what makes her the most interesting.
Yeah,
You know?
I really do. And just real quick, talk about that ending. What was it like recording that of like you crying over Gambit? The I Can't Feel You breaks my heart so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I did it a number of times and I did it a number of ways, but each time I was really, really into it.
Yeah.
When I recorded this episode, my 17-year-old niece had just passed away from cancer.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. And it was, I mean, it broke me. I was really broken. And my whole family. I don't,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we'll ever quite be the same when you lose a child.
Yeah.
And so I had been grieving basically silently and on my own because we were in the pandemic too, and we were all like caught in our own homes, and you weren't allowed going here and there and the other place. It was awful. And so I had been grieving and grieving by myself, and so I was able to put all of that pain and that emotion and that, you know, that feeling of emptiness and hopelessness and fear and sadness into my voice. And that's what I love about acting and about voice acting in particular, is that you can just, it's a craft, you know, and
Yeah.
trying to be able to put all of that into just your voice so that people can sense it, hear it, feel it, and it reverberates with them so that they can also, yeah, I think it moves something inside of them so that they also then can feel it.
Yeah.
That it's, for me, that is a gift. It's a gift, and it was like therapy.
Yeah.
It was like therapy. I was able to put all of it into that, and to be honest, you know, it helped.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, because it does come across like you put everything into it. And you know, Paul, who is here as well, Dayspring, we were talking about how like, give you a freaking Emmy.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. So, yeah, if anybody wants to follow me, they can find me on Instagram at Lenore Zann, LENOREZANN, and on Twitter or X, it's at Zann Lenore, ZANN LENORE. And I have my book, my memoir, coming out in the fall, probably October. Yeah, it's called A Rogue's Tale, fittingly.
Love that.
Talking about my life in the arts, in theater, movies, TV, animation, the X-Men, the first time around, those first 6 years, and my travels around the world, my misadventures, and also love affairs with some famous people and others not so famous. And I won't name any names because you got to read the book. And my foray into politics when I was an elected official for 12 years, 4 consecutive terms.
You have the coolest resume.
I'll tell you, it was interesting. I was told, oh, you'll never win. There's no way you can win. And then I won in a landslide. They called it a Zann slide. And then I won 3 more elections, including a federal election, my last one, and being a member of parliament with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, which was also a
cool.
dream. Yeah.
And that's nice because I know that your politics align with a lot of queer folks' politics. So
Yes.
I feel like that's like a good fit for you, like with someone
Yes,
like that who's not, super conservative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And he's very progressive as well, which is why I ran for him. And
Yeah.
the other thing was I've got a bill that I introduced, a private member's bill called A National Strategy to Address Environmental Racism and Environmental Justice. And that is currently going through the House. It passed in the House of Commons already, and now it's in the Senate, and it's in the Environment Committee stage. I think it will pass. It looks like it's going to pass there, go back to the Senate for 3rd reading. And then if it passes 3rd reading, it will become law in Canada.
Congrats. That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
Congrats.
Thank you so much. So yeah, there's all kinds of ways
Cool.
you can contribute to the world to make it a better place.
Thank you for spending time with us. I really
No
appreciate
worries.
this.
It's so nice.
I adore you.
You're like, oh, there we go.
Thank you.
And now you can say I hugged Rogue and I got to walk away.
Great. Okay, well, now we're gonna wrap up. What was your favorite part, Dominic?
Oh boy, explosions. Gosh, I don't know. I think they've just done a really good job of balancing, you know, interpersonal dynamics with the big grand stuff, and I think the animation, especially this episode, what we could see while it was buffering on streaming, the animation's been beautiful. I just think, you know, when you make something, there's so many things that can go wrong at every level, whether it's the writing or the voice acting or the animation or the music. But this feels like everything has come together to form a really lovely, cohesive whole, and everything is holding together really nicely. And so I hope as we go into the back 5 that it sort of continues to build and grow. But I think that they've really got the balance right of making it feel like an ensemble and making it dynamic and making it feel like a soap opera. And it just, it's firing on all cylinders for me.
Yeah. Jojo, what was your favorite scene?
Favorite scene, I'd probably say when Gambit and Rogue went through the city, flying through. He was on his motorcycle and she was flying by his side. And they kind of look at each other like, we're gonna kick ass together and save the day together. And then watching Gambit get his last hurrah, fighting, throwing the cards, ramming his motorcycle into Rogue to save her. His whole last little spiel of him fighting before he gets stabbed. I loved all of that. And also, to piggyback what Dominic said, the animation. If I had to say this, I mean, the animation, the cutting of the scenes, I really like the close-ups that they give everybody's faces. That's why I keep mentioning Sailor Moon, because when I think of the close cut of everyone looking in each other's eyes, or they're about to kiss, or the dancing, the close cut stuff like that reminds me of Sailor Moon. I love the aesthetic. We were talking about Gambit's pink, the purples. Something about this episode just really stood out, is like I said, the colors and the animation. That was my favorite aspects of it, but scene wise, the Gambit part.
Alex?
I mean, obviously the Gambit death is very good. But I would also say the depiction of Genosha, the little bits that we got, it's so hard to get that kind of message across in like the 5 seconds.
Like really 5 seconds.
Like it's literally like you're like in that 5 seconds, like you imagine what this world could be like, and you're like, oh, that's like amazing. Like it's like your imagination just takes off from there. You're like, oh, what else? Like what music are they listening to? What are they doing? What kind of
expensive is their food?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is Mutant Fire Island like? I want to know.
Let's go there next year, Alex.
No, it's gonna get blown up.
Oh, right.
Obviously.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to fucking save you. I don't want to fucking charge up a sentinel. I'm not built for that. I'm leech.
Are you? I say this scenario, you're Gambit and I'm Rogue. I think. I mean, we all said it, but Gambit's hero's death. I hated Gambit dying, of course, but I like if a character I love has to go out, I want it to be big, right? I want it to be like something that's like earned where they're like going out doing. So Gale Weathers is right here on my wall, right? I love Gale Weathers. Anytime I talk about if Gale Weathers has to die in Scream, I would want it to be she is killing Ghostface and she like maybe is stabbed and is like, but kills Ghostface on her way out because that's for me, like she is a hero. She is my favorite final girl. And like, if a character I love has to go out, I want it to be going out that way, like to give them justice and like some due respect if they have to be the character that dies. So yeah.
So since you just said that, and this is so off topic, but I just have to know. So if that's how you want Gail to go out,
I don't want her to go out. I'm saying if she had to.
If she had to go out, you want her to go out the way you described it, then would you have minded if she went out on Scream 6? Because it kind of sounds like
If
Scream
she had
6
killed Ghostface, and they should have let her kill her Ghostface since there was Ghostfaces to spare, but
yeah.
no. But I mean, I don't ever want her to die. That's the I don't want it to be taken as I ever want that because I never want that. But what grade do I think we're all probably gonna give the same? Dominic, what grade do you give this episode?
I would solid A.
Yeah. Jojo?
Oh, it's an A+ for me.
Alex?
A+, best of the season. Best
Yeah.
best thing is Marvel's done in the last like 5 years.
Which is wild because the Goblin Queen episode I loved. It was like mixing horror and X-Men, and it's like those are my favorite things.
Yes.
And I didn't think we would top that episode, but we have. Here we are with this episode. Thank you all for joining me. I'm sorry we went over on time. I appreciate all of you. Jojo, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on YouTube, Twitter, X, Instagram, however you want to call it, at I am Jojo Cortez.
And Dominic, where can everyone find you?
I'm mostly active on Twitter and Instagram. There's a lot of cats. On Twitter, I'm Dominic Burgess. On Instagram, I'm Dominic Burgess 1 because someone else got there first.
All right. Alex, where can everyone find you?
Just go to Vox. I'm on Twitter. I'm making jokes, but
And you just did an X-Men article, right?
we just did an X-Men article. I said, hey, you know what? We should have more animated series, maybe an animated feature. Give us an X-Men version of Into the Spider-Verse, please.
Ooh, I would be into that. And if you like Slayerfest 98, you can find us on all social media platforms at SlayerFestX98. You can find us on all podcasting platforms and YouTube, where you can watch this episode and see all our pretty faces. And if you want to support the podcast, you can support us on Patreon. We are going through Buffy season 3 for its 25th anniversary and Batman the Animated Series. And I have banked X-Men the Animated Series episodes, but I do not know when I'm putting them out. We'll see. And if you want to follow me, I'm at ENX Carlos. And we will see you next week for the next new episode of X-Men. Thanks, guys.
Woo.
Bye.
Bye.